Etymology and historical origin of the baby name Antonio. The name Antonio is the Spanish and Italian version of Anthony, which comes from an old Roman family name Antonius, originating out of modern-day Tuscany. Most notably, Mark Anthony comes from this family, Marcus Antonius. Not much else is known about its origin. Different variations of the name became heavily used throughout Europe starting in the post-classical era. The name is commonly associated with the 3rd century Egyptian monk who is credited with founding Christian monasticism. Also, Saint Antonio of Padua, the patron saint of Portugal, is further credited with popularizing the name during the Middle Ages when there was strong appeal for protective saints' names. Since the Spanish and Portuguese were so active in settling the New World, the name spread to North and South American with heavy usage. Antonio is still currently a top 25 name in both Spain and Italy. Personality of the boy name Antonio. The number 7 personality is deeply mystical and highly in tune with their spirituality. They operate on a different wavelength than the average Joe. Spending time alone comes easily to 7s, as it gives them time to contemplate philosophical, religious, and spiritual ideas in an effort to find real truth. 7s are wise, but often exude mystery as if they are tapped into something the rest of us don't understand. They love the outdoors and are fed by nature. 7s are constantly seeking to understand human nature, our place in the universe, and the mystery of life in general. This makes them quite artistic and poetic, but they are also keen observers with high intellect, so they are equally scientific-minded. 7s are charitable and care deeply about the human condition. Popularity of the boy name Antonio. The name Antonio has experienced moderately high usage in the United States for well over a century. In 1972, the name achieves a spot of the top 100 list of most favored boys' names for the first time in its history, likely due to the growing Latin American population. Antonio stayed on the top 100 list for 36 long years until it finally fell off in 2008. This may have something to do with Spanish-speaking people moving more toward traditional English-sounding names. We hope not, though, because the Spanish and Italian give the English Anthony some much-needed zest and cosmopolitan charm. It's the kind of name that makes you want to kiss your fingertips and throw them up in the air. Antonio. Antonio. Quick facts on Antonio. Gender, boy. Origin, Italian. Number of syllables, 4. Ranking popularity, 127. Pronunciation, Antiohneo. Simple meaning, praiseworthy, flourishing. Characteristics of Antonio. Solitary, philosophical, wise, imaginative, eccentric, mystical, intuitive. Cultural references to the baby name Antonio. Literary characters of the baby name Antonio. Antonio is a young sea captain who rescues Sebastian from a shipwreck in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and becomes very attached to him, giving him money and proposing to follow him into Illyria where he, Antonio, is a wanted man. Sebastian is grateful for Antonio's help, but does not want him to accompany him. Of course, this is a Shakespearean gender bender of a play, with most of the lovers and would-be lovers switching sexual identities and pretending to be other than themselves. Therefore, Antonio comes upon Viola, Sebastian's twin sister, disguised as a male, and is stricken when Sebastian doesn't recognize him. He feels betrayed, and even worse, he is arrested for his troubles. All comes right in the end, as lovers unite and wedding bells chime, though not for Antonio. Sebastian weds Olivia, seemingly unmoved by Antonio's earlier declaration, "I do adore thee so." Antonio is the title character of Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, who agrees to Shylock's infamous pound of flesh collateral on behalf of his friend, Bassanio's loan. He is depicted as well-respected, a generous and kindly man who cannot do enough for his friends, but that is certainly not how Shylock sees him. As a practicing Christian of the medieval culture that eschews the entire Jewish race, Antonio has no problem in belittling Shylock, indeed, even spitting on him. Just as it seems Antonio will have to pay up, a woman, Portia, albeit disguised as a man, finds the loophole in the law that allows Antonio to go free. When a harsh judgment is secured against Shylock, Antonio waives his right to Shylock's wealth on the condition that Shylock convert to Christianity. Shylock agrees, but it seems that this will take a lot of the fun out of Antonio's life. With Shylock no longer a Jew, no Shylock to spit on anymore. Popular songs on Antonio. San Antonio Rose, a song by Michael Franks; Antonio's Song, a song by Willie Nelson; San Antonio Girl, a song by Lyle Lovett. Famous people named Antonio. Antonio Sabato, Jr. Model/actor, Antonio Banderas; actor, Antonio McDias; basketball player, Antonio Vivaldi; composer. Historic figures with the name Antonio. Born in Catalonia, Spain, Yorba was a corporal during the Spanish expedition of 1769. He was in San Francisco in 1777, Monterey in 1782, and in San Diego in 1789. In 1797 he was retired and eventually granted the land Rancho Santiago de Santa Ana, present-day Orange County. Antonio Vivaldi is one of the most recognizable composers of classical Baroque style of music, particularly his series of violin concertos known as Auro for Seasons. He was born in 17th century Venice, Italy, and was a virtuoso violin-playing priest. In fact, he was called Auro Red Priest El Prete Rosso, due to his red-colored hair. Many of his musical compositions and violin concertos were written for the female music ensemble at a home for abandoned children where he did his priestly work, but he also wrote dozens of operas. During his lifetime, and while his musical influence was widespread across mainland Europe, he had a few successful stagings of these operas. However, Vivaldi would die a poor man and his music would eventually fade into relative obscurity. It wasn't until the 20th century that Vivaldi's pieces would be triumphantly revived.